Hello everyone and welcome back to another video, and today we are on HWBot because HWBot has made a very welcome change. Now the change is right here on the bottom of the benchmark lists for graphics cards, and we have this and this. So HWBot finally added GPU score only rankings for 3DMark Vantage and Firestrike, which I think is huge. It's such a welcome thing. I've been wanting this for so long, and it will probably also get more people into HWBot. Now this is still in beta. They are very probably just testing out how the community reacts to this, but I've already had a conversation about it on the Actually Hardcore Overclocking Discord, where everyone basically welcomed the change, and also a different, slightly smaller Discord where we had the same reaction. So for now, people seem to really like this. There's 6 submissions. More like 4. Oh, on 2 on a Graphics HD, the 26 Super and a 1080 Ti. Interesting. Yeah, this is very new. I think this came out yesterday, on the 10th of January. So this is still very new, which is why, well, there's basically no submissions here. Yeah, we finally have GPU score only rankings. So, why is this such a great thing? Sorry, I still have a little cold. Yeah, why is this a big thing? So Firestrike and just like basically all the 3DMark tests have not just the graphics tests, it also has a CPU test, and some have a combined test. And all that together makes your final score, which is what you use in the normal rankings. So you can very possibly run into situations where you have a graphics card that's absolutely slaughtering everyone else, but because you don't have, say, a Ryzen 9 5950X, your overall score is still gonna be lower than someone else who just has a really good CPU but isn't actually putting as much work into their graphics card. And yeah, that's not a very nice thing, because, like, yes, there's a CPU test, but mostly those tests are meant to test your graphics card. So to end up losing to someone because of the CPU and not the graphics card is kind of a bummer. So yeah, that's why I really like this, because now you can't do that anymore. Well, you can still bottleneck if you have like a 3090 and a first gen Ryzen. The absolutely insane FPS that you're gonna get are still gonna bottleneck. Yeah, you're still gonna get a bad score because of that CPU. But all the PCs that are put together by sensible people, and especially also beginner rigs, because beginners usually use pretty old graphics cards which will not have this issue, those will be fine. Like when we had that conversation yesterday on the HOC server, Buildzoid said something. I'm just gonna take his word here. I don't use graphics card that get that high of a score, but he said something like, if you have a GPU that gets about 30,000 GPU score, you wanna make sure that you have like a high clocking Intel or Zen 3 CPU, because if not, you're gonna lose about 1,000 points or something like that. But 30,000, that's like 1080 Ti territory. Maybe 1080, but I think 1080 Ti is where you would. I mean, we see it right here. We have 30,000 on a 1080 Ti, and that person is using a 7980XE. So yeah. So about at 1080 Ti level is where you run into these issues. Everything below that should be fine. So yeah, that's why we don't really care that much, I would say. And then the same thing also for 3DMark Vantage. Vantage is a different thing, because Vantage is a lot more CPU heavy because it's much older. You might run into those issues sooner, but then again, Vantage exists basically because, say, GTX 280 can't run Firestrike, so they run this instead. You can of course also run this with really new cards. Let's see. Oh, there's quite a lot of people who subbed this already, including a 3080. Yeah, but like 5770s, 5870s. That's more the kind of card that this is probably meant for. Which again is should be old enough so that you don't really run into a big issue. Yeah, as long as your graphics card is sorry, the main bottleneck, you should be fine in these tests. Oh, does it? There we go. Yeah. So, let's also take a look at the rules. The rules are pretty standard for HWBot in the sense that you are allowed to have LOD and tessellation tweaks. And I think they're just reusing the verification image here because it doesn't say you need the motherboard tab. It says, so what do you need to sub a Firestrike GPU? And it should be the exact same for Vantage GPU. Okay, GPU score only. So, latest version of the test plus the latest system info. No OS limitations, so you can use Windows XP, you can use Windows 7, as well as 8, 10, and 11. You need your verification link and your screenshot, which is pretty standard. You of course have to have the benchmark window visible. This time only need the GPU score visible. You can the overall and the physics and the combined score are not important. You just need the GPU score visible for now. You need CPU-Z for open for CPU and memory and version 1.96 or newer. So it doesn't say motherboard here, even though they are including the motherboard in the screenshot, which is why I think they're just reusing it. It doesn't hurt to include the motherboard tab, but it says here that you don't need to. Then you also need to have the main GPU-Z tab for your GPU open. You see they also have the sensors tab here. You can of course include that, but it's not needed. Windows taskbar must be visible and you're not allowed to clip or crop your screenshot. Then again, yep, you need the verification link again. And you are allowed to use the LOD tweak for NVIDIA cards and turn tessellation off for AMD cards, which will, so you see that little check mark there, it will turn into like a red exclamation mark, because 3DMark will say that your score is invalid. However, it is still valid for HWBot. So 3DMark itself does not allow this, but HWBot does. And, well, then we have this. And then Vantage should be the exact same thing. They even give you a key here because Vantage is a legacy benchmark. 3DMark has public keys for all the old benchmarks. This is probably just the one from their website. Again, latest version, system info, noise limitation, screenshot and verification link, GPU score visible, CPU-Z for CPU and memory, GPU-Z for GPU, tessel must be visible, no screenshot clipping, verification link, LOD and tessellation allowed. So, same thing. Just that you only need the GPU score here and the overall and CPU score can be ignored. So you don't actually have to run that part. You can, like, I mean, I've seen some submissions for Firestrike where people just, I think it's this one? Yeah. So you see, they're just running a custom, so they are running just the graphics score. I don't exactly know if that's okay. Well, it should say in the verification link what settings they used. Does it say? Result details. Settings. There we go. Yeah, so it shows your settings here. So you should be able to run custom and then just have the GPU tests run, and you can just not run physics and combined to have your score still be valid. Because usually, like, if you couldn't be able to see those settings, you could as well just like lower your resolution, get a higher score that way. But because you need the verification link, they can make sure that you don't cheat. So running custom should be okay. Don't quote me on this. They might clarify this later, but it seems like running custom just the GPU score should be fine. So, yeah. So, I really like this change. I haven't been directly asking them, but I've been saying to other people for a long time that I want this. Superposition already existed, like over here, which is a benchmark that also isn't getting nerfed by your CPU. That's just graphics testing. Sadly, these tests are not very popular. Well, these are even less popular right now because they just came out. But I would assume that this one, Firestrike GPU, will become very, very popular over the next bit of time. And so will probably Vantage for people who bench older stuff. That's like not DirectX 11 compatible. So yeah, and again, I really like this change because now you are not getting punished because you don't have the newest, fastest 1,000 euro CPU. You can run this on a decent mid-range CPU from a couple years ago and still be as competitive if you have the same work put into your graphics card. That's really, really nice. And I think it will also bring new people into benching because, I've been straight up been told that this change might bring, like some people have been saying that this might bring them into HWBot for like benching competitively for HWBot. Yeah, because it's just GPU score. And you no longer have to have like an 18-core CPU at 5 gigahertz, just so that you can cheese your way to the top because everyone else in the top is also doing it. This might also be very interesting if another like RipG and RipJ happens, as long as they agree to use this and not the 3DMark ranking. Because if they use this, they can completely concentrate on the cards and just go really, really, just go really to town on the cards and don't have to worry as much about the CPU. So yeah, and yeah, I think this is really good for new beginners who get into benching, because yeah, your mid-range rig will very likely run this just fine, and so you just only have to concentrate on the graphics card, and especially because when you start out, you probably get like a pretty old graphics card, like a GTX 280, 480, 580, or like a HD 5000 or 6000 series card, because those are very, very cheap, and if you're gonna start modding them, you probably want to test it on something cheap first because before you risk something more expensive. So those really, really old graphics cards should not even run into, like, you could probably run that on like a quad to quad and still get basically the full score. So yeah, this is gonna be really cool for new people, because you don't, like, it's always very daunting when you look at what setups people have, like dual LN2 ports sometimes, and just like, oh yeah, you need BDI memory, and like you need 5.2 gigahertz on your CPU, and like you need a super crazy motherboard with like VRMs that do not thermal throttle even at like 1.5 volts. People just think, yeah, no, I'm not gonna invest that kind of money, and just give up on it. But with this, as long as you're benching old enough graphics cards, you will probably run this on like an i5. Like just a random old i5 you might have lying around somewhere. So yeah, that's really, really cool. I really like this change. And that's basically the main reason why I'm making this video. So I want people to know about it, that this now exists. Like, as you can see by the popularity here, this is new, really, really new. Yeah, and I will probably spend today benching a bunch for this. Because, yeah, might as well get some golds while not many people submit scores. So, yeah, thank you for watching this video. I hoped I could inspire some of you to submit things to this ranking here, because they're really making it very, very easy on beginners now. Like, if you ever feel like, yeah, if you ever felt like getting into benching, right now is a really, really good time to start, because right now, where it's not super competitive, you might get really, really high up the rankings, even as a beginner, because, well, it will take a time until everyone, like, gets wind of the change and prepares their setups and runs, like, full-on LN2 results. So if you're fast enough, you could get a couple golds or silvers, which is basically what I'm planning to do. But this will probably become my, like, this Firestrike GPU will probably become my new go-to ranking on HWBot. I will probably still do regular Firestrike, because I can just run normal Firestrike and then submit the GPU portion as well. You can totally also do that, because there shouldn't be any specific settings you would need for just the GPU score, unless you are like the super cutting edge for GPU score. You might have to like disable hyper-threading to get better GPU FPS, which will nerf your CPU score and might get you an overall lower general score, but get you a higher GPU score, which you would then have to do separate runs. But I don't have any 30 series, I have one 20 series, which is in my daily system, and it's staying there, and I have one 10 series, which I'm not modding. So I think my stuff is old enough to not have issues with this. Anyway, this is really the end of the video, so thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I hope some of you are thinking about getting into this now. And until next time, goodbye.